Welcome in. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Another edition here of Mean Streets powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney hanging out with you. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me as well. Hopefully everybody had a great Monday night. Enjoyed the two football games. It was really nice to see two NFL games on Monday Night Football. I have no idea why still there were two in week two, but not complaining. I think we should see two every single Monday. Why not? Let's cut back on one of those maybe Sunday early games. Have a couple to watch on Monday. It was nice to have two games to keep an eye on, even though one was a complete blow. The Buffalo Bills had their way with the Tennessee Titans. Shout out to Joe Madden, had that pick on this show yesterday, 6 at the half. I don't want to say she got lucky. It worked. The process was right. We did get a late touchdown from the Buffalo Bills to get there. But I think a lot of things that we said about that game on this show, not bad, right? Bills rolled. They look phenomenal. They're Super Bowl favorites for a reason. Josh Allen is well on his way to potentially winning the MVP. I know we're just 2 weeks in. I don't think we can really overreact on this Bills team. Like, they were Super Bowl favorites heading in at 6-1. They're now 3-1 in some spots. I saw this morning at DraftKings 4-1. They look fantastic. And the Titans were a team that have given them issues over the past couple of years. Derrick Henry had 5 rushing touchdowns and 200 rushing yards in his last couple of games against Buffalo. And then yesterday, they bottled him up pretty good. He did have a rushing touchdown. I think he's a decent buy low candidate. I wouldn't give up too much to get him. I think the Titans offense will improve, but there's a lot of concerns with this Titans team. There's a lot of concerns with everybody inside the AFC South, as we talked about yesterday on this show. The Colts now plus 150. The Jags are plus 300. They were like 9-1 before when we did the season previews, and the Texans went from 75-1 to 15-1. The Titans are sitting there at plus 180. They're now 0-2 in a matchup next week, in a must-win situation for them and the visiting Las Vegas Raiders, who are 0-2. So two ugly losses for those two teams in week two, and the Bills are just going to roll. A nice matchup next week. I mean, I don't think we have any questions about the Bills. We know that they're great, one of the best complete rosters in the NFL. Josh Allen has been QB1 in each of the past 2 seasons. He's on his way to being QB1 again this season. 4 passing touchdowns. Didn't really need to run, and they basically rested everybody in the second half. Stephon Diggs was fantastic. Oh, man, he really crushed me in a lot of leagues yesterday. I feel like I went up against Diggs all over the place. He had 3 receiving touchdowns. He torched the Titans again. We were in on his receiving yard prop, and we got that one pretty early. I don't really have too much to say when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. Next week against Miami, I think it's more of a true test for the Dolphins, right? And Tua Tagovailoa, who has been really good to start the season. Mike McDaniel, new head coach, 2-0, beat Bill Belichick in week 1, and then took care of Harbaugh in week 2. And now he's got a true test against the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen and company have always had they've really owned Miami, especially Allen in Miami. Allen's just so good anyways. Like, he is just, he's awesome. He's really good. But I think the biggest surprise of yesterday, the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of the money was coming in on the Minnesota Vikings. I think like 75% of the money in on Minnesota. And we can sit here and we can laugh about Kirk Cousins, who's now 2-10 on Monday Night Football games and the prime time under the bright lights. This guy just does not know how to play football. But we also have to give credit to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the defense played really well as well. We'll get to Jalen Hurts in a second, who was phenomenal, but Darius Slay, he shut down Justin Jefferson. 7 targets headed his way when he was on. Justin Jefferson only gave up 1 catch for 7 yards, I believe. And he also a 0 quarterback rating for Kirk Cousins when he targeted Jefferson when Slay was on him, and Slay had the 2 picks. Probably should have had 3 or 4 picks if you asked him. I mean, there was a couple that he kind of dropped inside the end zone, but I think the first pick was on, sure, we could say it was on Kirk Cousins. I think it was a little bit on Justin Jefferson. It was just a veteran move by Slay inside the end zone. He made him cut in, and then he just cut him off, and it was an easy pick. So I think that one was kind of on Justin Jefferson. There was a couple wide open plays to Jefferson potentially that Kirk just missed. But how about the Philadelphia Eagles? My goodness, like, this team, they must have answered any question that you had about Jalen Hurts. There's a lot of people out there that don't believe in Jalen Hurts. I was on the fence too with Jalen Hurts. From a fantasy standpoint, no way. We said this guy was a league winner. He's a top 5 quarterback. He was QB6 last year in points per game with Aaron Rodgers, and he did that throwing the football to who? Devontae Smith, great player, and great last week too. We had him as a buy low candidate. He did nothing in week 1. Back-to-back weeks, he's led the Eagles in routes run and snaps played. He was great last night. But it was really Jalen Hurts who stole the show. From a fantasy standpoint, we loved this guy. We wanted to see if he could take the next leap, take the next step forward. And I'm sure that's what Philly wanted as well with this guy. Give him the reins. Let's see what they have. First year as a starting quarterback last year, did pretty well. Fantasy, great. Real life, had some highs and had some lows. Certainly some accuracy issues, but he still had over 60% completion rate in his first full season in the NFL. And then yesterday, this guy was perfect. He was basically perfect. His first half yesterday, I have it written down here. This is from who do we got? Oh, just NFL. Pretty trusty source. 17 for 20, 251 yards passing, 300 or 500 rushing yards. He had 300 yards, 500 rushing. Did I just say 500 rushing yards? 50 rushing yards. He had 300 total yards at half himself, 3 total TDs and a 135 passer rating. And he goes down as the only player in NFL history to have 300 plus passing yards, an 80% completion rate, and 2 rushing touchdowns last night. Jalen Hurts, a little bit of Michael Vick is what he looked like, right? Michael Vick when it was Chip Kelly, kind of Andy Reid. I think a little bit of Andy before Chip. There was a couple moments that Michael Vick had, with a couple rushing touchdowns, over 50 rushing yards, over 300 passing yards. He looked really good. But the biggest thing for me was that he was a passer before a runner yesterday. In games last season, he was mostly, first read, tuck and run. Yesterday, I saw first read, second read, maybe a little bit of running. But the Eagles offense, if he's going to throw, and he's not going to be that perfect week in and week out, but if he's going to take that next step as a passer, and it looks like he is, this team is completely dangerous because they have one of the best offensive lines in football. They can run the rock with multiple running backs plus Jalen Hurts, right? And we gave his rushing yard prop over 50 yesterday. I think that's basically, I want to say 90% of his games over the last 15 he's hit. The 3 last year towards the end of the regular season he did not hit. The 6 before that, I believe he hit. He hit week 1. He hit yesterday. He just has it in his nature. That second rushing touchdown was phenomenal. But this Eagles offense could be very dangerous because you got to respect the run, and some teams are not respecting Jalen Hurts as a passer, and then all of a sudden he's throwing deep to Quez Watkins. He's hitting Goddard. Devontae is a terrific route runner. A lot of the attention is going to be on AJ. AJ had a decent game. We didn't get his receiving yard prop. It was 72.5. He was stuck at 69. He had 5 grabs. We also had over 5.5. So we didn't get that one right. We got to hold ourselves accountable on this show. I still like the process. I do believe he is going to be the number 1 option for Jalen Hurts, but Hurts showed yesterday that he can move it around all over the field if he wants to. And if you're going to sit back 2 high safeties deep, he's going to pick you apart. So a little bit was on the Vikings defense, not making adjustments. Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, I wouldn't worry about him. Darius Slay is a shutdown corner, and he proved that last night. I thought that Jefferson still was going to be able to top his receiving yard mark, but Cousins just kind of had the yips when he threw his way towards Darius. And then, that's it. Really, nothing else. Major takeaway. Devontae, I still think is a wide receiver 3, a flex guy. AJ Brown has that upside to be a wide receiver 1. Irv Smith, showed up. He had a receiving touchdown. The Eagles struggled last year against tight ends. They struggled, yesterday covering Irv Smith, and there was a bad drop from him. He could have had a much bigger day. That was a beautiful throw from Kirk Cousins, and it should have been reeled in. And maybe things changed, with that play, but it is what it is. I think Irv was a standout for me. Thielen, not getting much from him. Dalvin Cook would be a buy low for me. I wouldn't be too worried. I still like Dalvin Cook. And then, the Eagles are kind of all systems go. I mean, Jalen Hurts is a lock and loaded top 5 quarterback, potential to be a league winner. Before we get out of here, this is the Eagles schedule, guys. And I want to address yesterday's giveaway. Bad on everybody's part. But we still will give away 2 packages. This is the Eagles schedule. Actually, you know what? We'll break, and I will address a lot of these questions and comments I see from people hanging out. Love it, guys. Smash the like button. You have any questions, we'll get to them on the show. We'll do some waiver wire running back rankings, take a look at week 3 for picks and things like that. We also have some MLB picks on the show as well. We're going to go over the Eagles schedule and that contest yesterday. Nobody got it right. Everybody overshot, myself included. Total yardage between Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown, 117. 117. There are a couple 150s. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more on Mean Streets. Keep her locked.
I can't say enough about what we've got going on over at ftnbets.com.
At FTN Bets, your bankroll can be profitable. With the FTN Bet Tracker, you can tell your favorite experts across all sports, including the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball.
Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. I'm your host, Chris Meaney.
And with our premium content, you can take your bets to the next level. Only $49.99 a month. Use the tools the pros use at FTN. Our betting models run over 100,000 simulations of every game, with sides and totals in the NFL, the NBA, and more. Use the home run predictor to see who'll hit a bomb deep. Our NFL player projections will make you a DFS king. And the FTN Prop Shop always finds the best odds for your player props. All tools, projections, and models are powered by FTN Data.
Welcome back in. Mean Streets here live on Game Plus Network or FTN Network YouTube page. I am smiling because somebody is here at the door and I just can't get him. My dog's going to absolutely freak out. So I apologize for the craziness that may happen here in the next 30 seconds or so. Hopefully you can't hear my dog. Eagles schedule. And I don't want to get too far ahead but I got to bring this up with you guys. I have to, right? They've now moved from 28-1 to win the Super Bowl to 12-1. They are massive favorites now, minus 200, 250 in some spots to win the NFC East. We've talked on this show about how they closed the gap on the Cowboys in the offseason with some of the adjustments. I mean, we didn't even really talk about their defense, just Slay. But yesterday, I thought the defense played pretty well as the offense. But the NFC we've talked a lot about this year is completely wide open, right? I liked the Bucs and the Rams as decent Super Bowl bets, even at 7-1 and 12-1. For the Bucs at 7-1 and the Rams at 12-1. And I know how tough it is to repeat. Like everything has to be so perfect. Look at the Bucs. I mean, they brought back everybody and, injuries. And now this year they're definitely running through some injuries. I think I just saw that they signed Cole Beasley this morning. So they're going through some stuff. And the Rams are going through some things as well. I mean, the Super Bowl hangover, look at the Bengals. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl, they're 0-2. They look absolutely awful to start the season. It's really tough to get back, but this NFC is completely wide open. It absolutely is. And people will now start talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, partly because we saw them on primetime and what Jalen Hurts was able to do. And the Vikings were also a trendy pick for a lot of people to potentially win the division, get into the playoffs and make some noise, with Kevin O'Connell and the coaching scheme that's different in Minnesota this season. And I still believe in that squad. But the Eagles are playing in a mediocre NFC East, with Dallas has some issues with Dak. And as I mentioned, it is completely wide open. I have a lot of question marks about the Packers. Yeah, they're probably going to host a playoff game at Lambeau. The weather's going to be brutal. They'll lean on both running backs. You hope that Allen Lazard is healthy and Aaron Rodgers can get them over the top. But over the past few years, they haven't been able to win that playoff game. They weren't able to win it last year against Jimmy G in what was bad weather, sure. But they had Devontae Adams on that squad. I still have a lot of questions about their team. Just mentioned the Rams and the Bucs, but the Eagles, I mean, I don't think we're getting involved now at 12-1. We have in the bet tracker 28-1. I think if you want to have a sprinkle, sure. But they may be on their way to maybe hosting a playoff game at the Link. Look at this schedule. And I know a lot can change, guys. A lot can change from now until Thursday. Injuries happen. We saw it. Dak goes down. Anything happens. The offensive line, anything. Darius Slay goes down. Lots can happen. But next week at Washington, then the Jags, then Arizona, Dallas, Pittsburgh, Houston, Washington, Indianapolis. All those teams, I think they're favored against all of them. All the teams. Then they got the Packers at home. Then they got the Titans, Giants, Bears, Cowboys, Saints, Giants. I think they have one of the easiest schedules remaining. Again, a lot can change, but they'll be favorites in a lot of those games. I saw some questions here about Devontae, squeaky wheel from Matt. Yeah, that's something that we talked about on this show is like a buy low candidate. Just the fact that he was out there running more routes and playing more snaps than anybody, even though it was really AJ. But Devontae's still a really good wide receiver, and he's great at creating separation. He's a terrific route runner, and we saw him involved yesterday a lot, especially in like some third down situations. I saw Jalen go to him as well. So I think all the Eagles players, if you can get them on your roster. I know there's some question about Miles Sanders. I see Deesh in the house. He's got Lamar and Hurts. It's a pretty good 1-2 punch in a super flex league. I don't know if anybody's going to have better than that. Maybe Josh Allen and Hurts or something like that, but it's a pretty good 1-2 punch. So I wouldn't be selling any Philadelphia guys. It's just the way you go, Matt. Hey, Meaney, go Birds. So that's really it from the Eagles standpoint. Jefferson can't be had. Cook, if you could go get him, if somebody's ticked off with yesterday, I'm sure you can check in and see what you want to do there if he's available. And I would try to get him. I would try to for sure acquire him. Okay. Like Miles Sanders and something. You may have to trade 2 for 1, but you get the better back. Okay, so yesterday I asked people the combined total yardage from Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown. I may have oversold it, and maybe this is probably my fault. I came in here hot with both of these guys over the receiving yard props. They both had 73% of their team's air yards in week 1, which was a week 1 high. So a lot went right for them in week 1 and not so much in week 2. So, but a lot of the guesses, I mean, every single guess was over the total yardage of 117. We had 48 from Jefferson. We had 69 from AJ Brown. So everybody overshot. We wanted to do a Price is Right style here. That didn't really work out because everybody overshot, but I still want to give some love to people who were close. So Jennifer Rivera, don't know. I haven't really seen you in the comment section of the show when we go live, but I saw you, gave your answer in the YouTube section of this show. So you are a winner. I would try to find a way to reach out to you if you are checking in on this show here today. Great. Congratulations. You won. Reach out if you can at Chris Meaney on Twitter or meanstreetsftn@gmail.com. We will get you hooked up. It's pretty simple. Just need you to sign up for free over at ftnbets.com. Let me know the email address that you sign up and we'll get you hooked up. Projections, tools, picks across all sports, access to Discord and all that stuff. And you are one of the winners. And then Justin Chafee as well, 150. You both had 150. As I mentioned, everybody really overshot here. I wanted to give it closest without going over, but we make adjustments. And we'll do this again because I feel giving. I want to show off the tools, projections, and things like that over at FTN. Hockey season's around the corner. We'll be giving hockey picks. We'll still be giving picks and things like that on this show, but I want you guys to see what we have to offer over at ftnbets.com. So Dustin and Jennifer, if you guys can reach out, as I mentioned, at Chris Meaney, meanstreetsftn@gmail.com, and I will circle back on your comments from yesterday and make sure we have you. So congrats to everybody. We'll do this again. Probably not on Thursday Night Football. Steelers and Browns. Bunch of unders. Who likes that? Who likes unders? And not me. Okay. I see a couple more questions here. If you guys have any, by all means, leave them and we will address them here in a little bit. Austin's got one about Lance. We'll get to that one in just a second. We have, hockey picks. It's here, right? NHL is here. It is absolutely here. Preseason action is happening. I'm going to join Pete Jensen and Nick Alberga on the NHL Fantasy on Ice podcast this afternoon, talking about some bargains and things like that. And on Friday, we will have a fantasy hockey episode for you. It's okay, football fans. On Thursday, we'll still preview the Thursday night game. We'll give some picks and things like that on that show for the weekend. We still have Set Bet Spike with myself and Eric Young, giving some picks, NFL stuff. So lots of NFL content. But Friday's show will be a lot of hockey, team previews, fantasy hockey stuff. And on Monday, we will have like a fantasy hockey draft. Eric and I are going to go through a draft. So if anybody wants to take part in an underdog draft with us, follow us on Twitter, and we're going to get that together this week. I'll let you know the details coming forward, but reach out if you would like to be part of that draft over at underdogfantasy.com. You can use a promo code FTN and they'll match your first deposit too, up to $100. So it's pretty cool. Underdog Fantasy as well. You do some props on there. We did some best ball football drafts on there, before the season started. So we want to do a couple NHL ones as well. And of course, Dangle Bet Selly will be back. Medi, we will still be doing Dangle Bet Selly, which comes your way on Game Plus Network as well on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So lots of exciting news. We'll break one more time and we'll get into some waiver wire running back rankings. We'll address some of those questions that you guys have as well. We got some quarterback streams, some tight end streams, some defense streams as well. Of course, we have to replace Trey Lance. I feel so bad for Trey Lance. I really do. My goodness, it's just been such a rough go for him. With some injuries and this injury and then the COVID a couple of years ago, he couldn't get on the field. And then Jimmy G, they traded up to get him. And now it's going to be, a long time before we see him get a handful of starts in the NFL. So it's really tough. I feel for Trey Lance. Hopefully he comes back strong. It is Jimmy G's team for now, but the question was surrounding Jimmy G, and I don't think I would trust him on my fantasy roster. So we'll look for some other replacements aside from Jimmy G. So a lot more to get to here on Mean Streets. We'll be back in a couple. Welcome back in. Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. Let's do running backs and wide receivers before we do. You know what? Change my mind. I'm so indecisive all the time. Let's do quarterbacks. We don't have any boards for quarterbacks and tight ends and things like that, but we'll get through it here. So, for week 3, I see some people with Trey Lance. There's some Jimmy G stuff there. I think I saw a question. Austin said, lost Lance this week, have St. Brown. Would you pick up Goff over Jimmy G to fill the void? Absolutely. Goff was actually one of our sleepers on this show. Is like a very strong quarterback 3 in super flex leagues. He's been okay. He's, from a fantasy standpoint, he's actually had some great moments, right? From a real life standpoint, I don't think anybody really trusts him. That could be the reason. That probably was the reason the Rams lost to the Bills, or the Rams lost to the Pats a few years ago in the Super Bowl. But Goff has got some real nice weapons around him. He's got one of the best offensive lines in football in Detroit. It really is. You can make the case it's maybe the best. They've had some nice significant runs with that offensive line to start the season. The defense has a lot of holes, so that Goff is going to be playing catch up and playing from behind quite often. You got Amon-Ra, who's got 8+ grabs in 8 straight games. He's on the verge of breaking an NFL record if he could do it again this week. TJ Hawkinson is a mismatch of a tight end. He's had some moments. DJ Chark was quiet in week 2, but he showed us upside in week 1 as a high ADOT guy inside this offense. Soon, Jameson Williams will be part of this offense as well. Swift catching balls out of the backfield. I like Goff, so I would lean Goff over Jimmy G for sure. Jimmy G's got this matchup in Denver this week. I don't like that at all. I'm not a huge fan. And Goff's got a matchup in Minnesota against the Vikings. We just saw their secondary kind of get lit up and torched through 2 games. Got 16 fantasy points and then 25 fantasy points. Got 6 passing touchdowns. He's only has 1 interception. And the schedule is just, it's not bad, right? After this one, Minnesota, you got Seattle. So there's a couple weeks there of decent play. Week 5 in New England's a bit of a tough one. for him. And then week 6 is a bye. Coming out of that bye, you got Dallas, Miami, Green Bay, Chicago, the Giants. Hopefully you're set before, you get to week 12, Buffalo. But there's a lot of matchups, in Superflex leagues that I'll roll him out. I have to do it as well. He's my third quarterback in the Superflex where I have Trey Lance, and I'll just be rolling him out. Other quarterbacks that are available. I mentioned Jimmy G. I'm not completely sold on him. Justin Fields, it seems like doesn't seem like Chicago wants to throw the football at all, which is kind of frustrating for Cole Kmet. Gonna have to pour one out for Cole Kmet. I can't take like 3 zeros in a row, so I take the loss on that one. I still like him overall as a player. They're just not throwing the ball. They're not throwing the ball in Chicago. So Fields, I think I would roll out Goff or Carson Wentz ahead of Fields. At least those two are chucking the rock and throwing the football. Carson Wentz this week at home against his former squad in Philadelphia. It's not the best matchup, but he's looked pretty good spreading the ball around, and it looks like a pass-happy offense in Washington this year. They're not really running the rock as much as I thought they would, and Wentz is throwing around to all 3 wide receivers, and I think I saw a question about the wide receivers as well in Washington. Something there about, which wide receiver would you stash? I mean, I think Terry McLaurin is number 1. I think, I would say that Dotson is number 2, but Curtis Samuel is getting his. I would stash Dotson. He'd be my guy for me. That's the guy that I would stash. We'll move on from that question. Jimmy G's out there too. Geesh has picked up Wentz after the Trey injury. Other options: Goff, Mariota, Jones, Ryan, and more awful options. Yeah, I would. This week I would go Goff, probably Goff against Minnesota as opposed to Wentz against Philly. But those are the 2 guys I'd look at. Mariota, he's got a little bit of a rushing upside. He's kind of close. Who do the Falcons play this week? They play Seattle at Seattle. That's not bad. He's got Drake London there. Kyle Pitts hasn't done a whole lot, but, through 2 games, 19 and 15 fantasy points. It's okay, right? 2 passing touchdowns, 2 picks. He's not going to be a guy that I think throws the ball, like 40 times. I think they're going to run the rock and, try to slow the pace down a little bit because the defense is not good, but I think he's all right. The matchups after this, though, Deesh, get a little bit tougher. Cleveland, Tampa Bay, San Fran, at Cincy. So it's just kind of like a one start. And then, after that, I'm just not totally in on it. So I'd go Wentz. Geno, I'm not getting involved with Geno, especially when they do some trickery inside the red zone like that. That play call was ludicrous. Daniel Jones is okay. He'd be next on my list, after these other guys that I've already mentioned. 3 touchdowns through 2 games, 18, 13 fantasy points, has a little bit of rushing upside, not really throwing the ball all that much though. And he's been sub 200 yards in each of his first 2 games, and just soft matchups, Tennessee and Carolina. It's got Dallas this week, which is a really tough matchup. Dallas defense is good. It really is. Held Tom Brady in check in week 1 and, gave Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense absolutely fits. So this is not a great matchup. After that, Chicago, Green Bay, Baltimore. Baltimore just got torched. Week 6, though, you figure that their secondary is going to be a little bit healthier than, moving forward. So those are really just the quarterbacks. Tannehill, Matt Ryan. I'm not touching Matt Ryan. You can't touch Matt Ryan. 4 fantasy points. He's thrown the ball 80 times in 2 games. He's got 4 picks. He's fumbled the ball. If there's no Pittman, no thanks. I wouldn't even roll out Matt Ryan in a super flex league as my second quarterback. I'd be playing Jameis with, the back injury that he has. I'd still roll him out over Ryan. I would roll Mariota out over him. And then, Goff and Wentz are 2 guys I'm looking at. So I think hopefully we got you covered from a quarterback standpoint. So from a tight end standpoint, a lot of the guys that we talked about last week, they're still, available in leagues. We got Gerald Everett here, 58% ownership in Yahoo. He's got a matchup against Jacksonville. We talked about him last week as a really nice streaming option with no Keenan Allen. He had 10 targets, 6 grabs, 71 yards. He's got 22 fantasy points, 23 actually in the 2 games, 14 targets, 9 grabs. Even when Keenan comes back, I expect him to be, involved in this offense. It's a high-powered offense. Now, I will say that there may be questions this week. I think I would still roll him out if I was hurting at the tight end position. And like by hurting, I mean, you've been rolling out Kmet. You got Dalton Schultz, who probably misses this week. George Kittle doesn't play. So there's a couple dudes out there that may not play this week. Also got to say that Justin Herbert, you may have to try to replace Justin Herbert this week, dealing with like broken rib cartilage. I don't know how he suits up this week, but it's still a good matchup against Jacksonville. Chase Daniel is not great, but we could get a couple targets out of the, Gerald Everett this week. So he's an option. Irv Smith is an option as well. Quiet first game. missed most of camp with a thumb injury. So maybe that was part of it. A much better game yesterday. He had the drop. He could have had a much bigger day. He may have finished tight end 1. In fact, I think he would have if he caught that pass. It was actually a beautiful throw from Kirk Cousins, but it looked like he caught it and then he went to tuck it and run and then he dropped it. But 8 targets from him yesterday, 5 catches, only 36 yards, did have a touchdown inside the red zone. I think he could actually be the number 2 option in Minnesota's offense. I don't know if I'm really digging Adam Thielen as much as I thought, heading into this season, that he'd be okay. He's still a touchdown machine. He got some garbage time looks. And, when top corners are going to be on Jefferson, Thielen may open up the offense a little bit, but I think that Irv Smith may be the number 2 option in this Vikings offense, which is it will be a good offense this year. I mentioned Kevin O'Connell coming over there, 3 wide receiver sets. It opens up the offense a little bit more pass happy than in years past with the Vikings. Certainly, Kevin O'Connell's been he's been basically linked to Sean McVay for the past few years in Washington. As a quarterback coach with McVay, and then of course in LA and opening up the playbook last year, and then this year taking pieces of the playbook as well. So I think Irv Smith probably, a lot of people cut ties with him after the first week. His ownership, I'm seeing 41%. I think he's an option. Ty Conklin, this is maybe a deeper league option for you. He's got 19 or 16 targets in 2 games, 10 grabs. It's not significant stuff. I mean, he's only got 56 yards. He does have a touchdown, which came week 1, garbage time. But for a tight end to get, 6 or 7 targets, like if that's the floor, I'm kind of in, you know what I mean? Like at least he's getting targets. Cole Kmet's not getting targets. He's not getting any looks. Albert O is still interesting to me, even though he had a dud game. That's probably tight end premium leagues, deeper formats. Taysom Hill, we said it was a trap. He had 1 fantasy point last week. He had 14 week 1. I wouldn't be rolling this guy out as my tight end. And I think if Jameis goes down, it's Andy Dalton. David Njoku, I liked what I saw from him a little bit more in week 2. 5 targets, 3 grabs, 32 yards. He had a couple end zone targets, which is really nice. A matchup this week against the Steelers. A couple decent matchups coming forward for him as well. I do believe he will be the number 2 option in this offense once we get into things. I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones, I also think that's a trap. Amari's the 1 and Njoku potentially the number 2. Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas would actually be number 2 on my list behind Gerald Everett. I kind of slipped up and forgot about him, guys. My apologies there. About 11 targets through 2 games. He's got 6 grabs. He's got a touchdown. He has 82 yards. A matchup this week against the Eagles, who I mentioned, they struggled last year covering the tight end. If there's a weakness in the secondary, I think that's it. We saw Irv Smith yesterday, almost 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown for sure. So he's a guy that I'm going to be going after in leagues that I have Cole Kmet, leagues that I have Dalton Schultz. I have a lot of Schultz. So Logan Thomas is somebody that I will be going after. Put him higher on your radar. He's only 15% owned. So that'd be the way that I would go. I'm not keeping track on any comments. Is there anything, Tyler? Any tight end questions here? Flacco versus Cincy? Too crazy? A little crazy. Not crazy. Man, it's kind of crazy. I'm not calling you crazy, but I will say that he's thrown the ball quite a bit through 2 games, which is pretty intriguing. 59 pass attempts in week 1, 44 pass attempts in week 2. He's got 300 yards in each of his first 2 games. He's got 5 touchdowns. Maybe it's not as crazy as I thought. Deesh. This guy 12. Maybe it's not as crazy as I thought. I don't know though, man. I think I'd still go Goff or Wentz. I haven't really thought about Flacco, but volume and pass attempts are everything in fantasy football. It's key. Jets defense is a little bit better than last year. They got some nice pieces on offense. We'll see what the deal is with Sauce Gardner. I didn't see anything on him. I know he left with like a chest injury. I know he's just a rookie, but I mean, he's a real deal. I don't hate it. You're kind of talking me into a little bit. It's risky. I don't know if I would do it in a single quarterback league. I still think there's guys out there that I would start over him, like a Trevor Lawrence. I don't know. 2 quarterback league, I could certainly get behind it. Jennifer Rivera in the house. Oh my God, I'm new to this. I actually won. You did win. Congratulations, Jennifer. Actually, everybody overshot the combined yardage of Justin Jefferson and AJ Brown, but you were the closest. You and Dustin, you both had 150. So you are new to this. I haven't seen you in here. Welcome in. We appreciate you. If you can reach out on Twitter at Chris Meaney, DMs are open. If you don't have Twitter, that's fine. Email meanstreets ftn@gmail.com. We will get you set up for an FTN betting package. We just need you to sign up for free over at ftnbets.com. Let me know what email you use, and we'll make sure that you are all set up in there as well. I see a lot of other questions here. Daily Handle doing some work for us. Everyone here, smash the like button. We appreciate you guys, and the loyal viewers. And Jennifer, welcome to the FTN fam. We do appreciate you. Congratulations. FTN betting package is yours. I think we got through the quarterbacks and the tight ends a little bit longer than I anticipated. Sometimes I sit up here and I just ramble, but we'll break. We'll look at defensive streams, and I got some running back and wide receiver rankings. I do want to get those to you guys as well. So hang tight. We'll be back in a couple. Welcome back in. Okay, before we get to some of these questions, I really want to show you the running back rankings that I have for the waiver wire and wide receivers as well. So let's do running backs first, Tyler. I got a few names here on this list. This is dudes that are owned in fewer than 50% or 60% of Yahoo leagues. I tried to scan ESPN and NFL.com is really weird. Like guys that, are owned in 80% of Yahoo leagues are owned in like 7% of NFL.com leagues. Of course, those playing high stakes competitive leagues, I understand, a lot of these guys may be owned, but I want to hit on everyone. Everyone's leagues are a little bit different here. So for me, I think the best pickup and stash in the game is Brian Robinson Jr. It looks like he's going to be back really soon. He's on the field. He's practicing. We could see him. Some reports say week 4. They didn't use Antonio Gibson as much as they did in week 1, and JD McKissic was a guy catching passes out of the backfield like I thought he would, and it was more so Gibson in week 1 and catching passes not so much week 2. And I think all the same things apply for Ryan Robinson and Ron Rivera. Gibson's been great here for these first 2 games, but they drafted a guy. They brought back JD for that third down role. I think Robinson will eventually be the lead. It's a stash. If you're 0-2 and you need running back help right now, it's probably not the pick for you. But don't forget about him because he's hanging around waiver wires. Raheem Mostert acted as the lead in week 2. It was Chase Edmonds in week 1. I'm not crazy about Raheem Mostert. This offense looks like it's going to be okay. They play fast. They play speedy. I do believe he's going to be the goal line back this season for Miami. Chase Edmonds may have a bounce back game. I'm kind of into buying low on him if he's your third running back as a flex there. It could be a little bit of a crowded situation, but he shouldn't be on the waiver wire. It's nice to have some depth. You got the 2 Arizona backs here. I don't know anything right now about James Conner. I'm just not sure. We don't know if your waivers run tonight. You're kind of guessing unless we hear some news here today. If they run tomorrow, he got an extra day of some practice reports. But what I saw from between the two backs was a bit of a split backfield between the two when Connor went down. But Williams acted as the lead, first and second down, short yardage. He had all the goal line snaps, all 8 of the goal line snaps. Eno had none. Eno acted as the backup in week 1. I thought heading into the season, whoever won that third down job between the two backs, it would be a significant role. Chase Edmonds had 90 plus grabs in 2 years with Arizona. As I mentioned, Eno acted as that backup, catching passes, playing third down situations in week 1, but it was more Darrel Williams. Honestly, I was ready to take the loss, and I still could. We don't know. It's kind of a bit of a guessing game here between these two backs, but I thought heading into the season that job would belong to Darrel Williams because he's the veteran back. Last year when CEH went down in Kansas City, he had games where he had double-digit carries between the tackle. He was catching balls, tackles. He was catching balls out of the backfield. I just figured that if anything happened to Connor, he was more suited for like next man up, bell cow back potential, first, second down, short yardage, all very valuable things inside the offense. Of course, Kyler Murray is fantastic and he has the potential to run it in himself. We saw that multiple times last year or last week and over the course of his career. This guy is absolutely a freak. He's awesome. Like he's running around like a kid in the schoolyard. You're trying to chase him around. You can't chase him. You can't catch him. He runs it in. It's like 85 yards he scrambled for in like 21 seconds. Freak. But Williams to me is the lead. So if you're a Connor owner, I think you got to get Williams. If you're hurting at the running back position, a little sprinkle on Williams just to get him, on your roster. Could turn out to be a bit of a stash. We wouldn't spend too much on him because, again, we don't know about Connor if he's going to play. But that's how I view it. Williams over Eno. Khalil Herbert, I still like him as a back. He's more of a stash. I think Rachaad White's probably the best stash, actually, in fantasy football, especially when we just saw Leonard Fournette have 28 opportunities in week 1, which led all running backs. McKinnon's keeping his third down role. He's like a flex PPR spot guy for you. Tyler Algier, a little bit more play last week. I still think he's going to overtake the backfield in terms of first and second down, some red zone stuff. It is a bit of a stash. Jordan Mason, maybe a cheap little flyer. We saw Davis Price go down. I think he's 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. Jeff Wilson got a lot of play, a lot of run. I think Mason, people are going to go with Mac, but I don't think Mac is worth your time unless you're in like a 45 team league. Rex Burkhead, I still think there's some value here for Rex, even though Dameon Pierce had 100% of the running back carries last week. A bit of a surprise, but Burkhead played, a 2-minute drill, third down. I think he does have a role there on the Texans. Just, a stash piece on your bench. If something happens to Pierce, he is the next man up. He's a guy that's going to get 15 plus touches. I don't think you can ignore that. Jamal Williams, I'm not even sure who 12 is. Thank you, Tyler. J.D. McKissick, pass catching back, Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren, Pacheco in there. So those are the running backs. For me, let's switch gears and actually we'll stay here. We'll do wide receivers in the next block, and then we'll get away from the fantasy football talk. We do have some MLB stuff for you as well. Are there any questions, Tyler, that we can get to that you've run through that I haven't maybe gotten to? Should I trade Dalvin Cook and Debo away for JT and Joe Burrow? You had Dak, so you need a QB. I don't think so. I think I would hang on to Cook and Debo. JT's nice. Clearly, you're going to get arguably the best running back in fantasy football and, patchwork for Joe Burrow. But Dak's going to be back sooner rather than later. And then what happens? When Dak comes back, what do you do with Joe Burrow? You're going to be in a situation where you don't know which quarterback to start. You got 2 top 10 quarterbacks, kind of a wasted bench spot for you. I would just try to fill the gaps through the waiver wire for Dak, right? A couple guys that we talked about, Goff, Wentz, Flacco. kind of like thinking about Flacco a little bit more. Honestly, I would just fill the gaps. I would do it for now. You get Fields in there rushing. I wouldn't do that, Ethan. I think, if you're 0-2, I think about it a little bit more, but I would just, it's a long season. A lot could happen. You're basically giving away Debo for free for like a couple weeks of Joe Burrow. Dak could be back sooner rather than later. What else do we got? You got another one there? We'll do one more and then we'll break. If you do have one. Got the Will Smith Sr. in the house. Okay, this one, Austin. Is Zeke a guy you'd look to move, or do you think he'll bounce back? Just not much production. So I don't know if he's going to bounce back. I don't like his outlook over the next couple of weeks without Dak Prescott. The offensive line does have some holes in Dallas. So I'm I'm not interested in acquiring him. You could try to move him. I don't think you'll get a proper return. It's been a couple dud weeks, so it's a bad time to sell him. If he has a better week this week, then I think you could do it. But I'd try to make him available, see what you can do. We'll break though, guys. We'll get to a couple more of those questions. I got some wide receiver stuff for you as well. Hang tight. Here are a few defense streaming options for you up at the top for me. Saints against Carolina. I really like the Saints defense. You got Cleveland against Pittsburgh. These two defenses are probably owned 61 and 63% ownership. I think the Bengals are in play against the Jets, even though we talked about Joe Flacco chucking the ball as much as he does or has. The Chargers against Jacksonville, 65% ownership. Surprisingly, they're out there. It's a really strong defense, a good, decent spot against Jacksonville. Dallas is a really good defense as well. 42% ownership, probably available, guys. I mean, they got 8 sacks through 2 games. They got a matchup here against Daniel Jones, who's a turnover machine, right? Turnover waiting to happen for that guy. I mean, yikes. So that's a defense that I would look at as well. On the other side, maybe the Giants against Dallas. Cooper Rush looked okay in that first game, but if you're really desperate and you need a defense, I think that's the way that it would go. And maybe the Eagles, right? The Eagles against Washington and Carson Wentz. I'm sure they can create a couple turnovers against their former quarterback. Okay, wide receiver rankings here. Going to dig a little bit deeper. Got 1 through 10, probably owned in most leagues, but sub 60% ownership. So wanted to address them. Garrett Wilson, a couple rookies here, near the top. Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson. Again, Carson Wentz is spreading it around. Flacco's spreading around as well, but I believe Wilson, there's going to be some highs and some lows with him for sure. You still got Corey Davis on the squad, Elijah Moore, running backs who are catching balls out of the backfield. Just mentioned Conklin as well, a bunch of targets through 2 games. But I think Wilson has a high ceiling. I really like this guy coming out of college. Terrific route runner. He's got the nice little stutter step to him. I'm a big fan. So I would lock him up. Maybe even consider selling high, right? Because people are crazy about rookies. You could maybe potentially flip him and get a decent piece, maybe 2 for 1. Upgrade there. Jacoby Myers, don't love his touchdown upside, but a lot of volume, a lot of opportunity for him. Clearly the number 1 option for Mac Jones in New England. Treylon Burks looked decent yesterday. I think he's going to continue to improve, get more snaps, get more playing time. Russell Gage, if you need somebody this week, I'd probably, get him over Burks potentially, but no Mike Evans this week, Chris Godwin, Julio Jones, who knows if he's going to play. They signed Cole Beasley. They just are hurting. Rashad Perriman, they're just hurting. So Russell Gage, if you need somebody. I still believe in Kadarius Toney. I think once we get going, he's going to get more snaps, more playing time. If you need somebody this week, I think Sterling Shepard is a better pickup. This is for me long-term goals. Sterling Shepard has not the cleanest track record in terms of health, but if you need somebody this week, Shepard will be ahead of Tony in my rankings. But I think Tony is a good buy low and a decent stash. Kenny Golladay is not touching the field. I'm not believing in anybody else in this offense other than really Saquon. Palmer, Zay Jones, Nico Collins. Nico Collins had a bunch of targets in week 2. Liked him heading into the draft. Just be patient with him. I think he can be the number 2 in this offense. Zay Jones as well. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has looked pretty good after Christian Kirk. It seems like Zay Jones is the number 2. Let's dig a little bit deeper here and get to some other guys. We got 11 through 20. Robbie Anderson, the reason I have MVS over Mecole Hardman, he's just playing more, getting more snaps. I think there's a higher ceiling for MVS. Both guys are going to be inconsistent. Dortch, if you need somebody right now, it's going to be a few more games before DeAndre Hopkins comes back. The other guys are just kind of stashes. Pickens, I think, he needs Pickett to overtake Trubisky, I think, before we start to see him going. Landry's like a veteran wide receiver. Once we get into injuries and bye weeks, you can plug him in. Olave's not on this list because he's owned in more than 60% of leagues. That happened right there with Garrett Wilson, 1 or 2. Christian Watson, deep stash. I'm not a big believer in Rondell Moore. He's going to be healthy soon, and maybe he cuts into Dortch and things like that. But, short A-dot, just a PPR guy. He's like 4 for 54 when he gets going, things like that. Maybe I'm a little low on him. Dobbs and Noah Brown. A couple questions here. Will Smith Sr. in the house. Quite the slap on Chris Rock there, but I guess we'll answer this question. Do I keep Olave or Landry or Shepard or Chark? I would go Olave over Landry, and I would go Shepard over Chark. Mr. Nice Guy, I would definitely hang on to Josh Jacobs. Just be patient with him. He had 19 carries, 69 yards, got 29 carries, in 2 games. It's not awful. He hasn't had any touchdowns. You're right. Lanes will start to open up. Once this offense gets going, maybe he falls into the end zone a couple more times. So I would hang on to Josh Jacobs. It's like a decent RB2 or it's like a flex guy for you. Deesh was saying 2 quarterback league, I think, for Flacco. Yeah, out of your options here, Jimmy G. I would go Flacco over Jimmy G. I would go over Geno. I'd go over Mills. I'd go over Trubisky. Yeah, I mean, Flacco over all those guys. Absolutely. Big fan. Should have done the Price is Right style, 1 yard. He should have. Yeah, but we credit Jennifer for the win there. That would have been good strategy for you. 1 yard. I like that a lot. I think we've hit everything. Did we hit everything? Zeke, weapons. Jennifer, oh my God, I'm new. I won. Dalvin Cook, we hit on. Jimmy G2, meh. Washington wide receivers. I think we hit on all this stuff. If you guys have any questions, at Chris Meaney, you're watching the replay. You can leave the questions in the comment section. Game Plus, you can hop on over. If you have any waiver wire questions, you can ask. We have articles galore over at ftnfantasy.com. And tomorrow we'll talk buy low, sell highs. People will overreact. They'll drop a bunch of players and we'll scoop them all up. And hopefully they'll help you out in your fantasy football path to a championship. One more break here. I got some MLB picks to round out the show. Keep her locked. Rocco in the house, pick up Wilson, drop Devontae or Burks. I'm assuming you mean Garrett Wilson. I would not drop Devontae Smith. If you want to sell high on Smith's game, go ahead. Now would be the time to do it. But this offense looks good. Just talked about the schedule off the top of the show. Very, very easy schedule. Maybe the easiest the rest of the way. Is a lot of soft secondaries. And Hurts looked great yesterday. And I do believe in Jalen Hurts as a player in the NFL. So I would drop Burks for Garrett Wilson. That's the move that I would make. And we got some MLB picks to round out the show here for you guys. If I miss any questions, I will circle back and I'll get them before waivers run for you. So here's what I'm thinking on the MLB slate. A couple pitching props. Nestor Cortez over 5.5 strikeouts. Minus 115 over at DraftKings. He's got a matchup here against the Pittsburgh Pirates. They have the second highest K rate against lefties this season, 27%, 27.9% strikeout rate over the last month is the second highest in baseball. And they have a top 4 swinging strike percentage over that span. Patrick Corbin, a matchup here against the Braves, a little bit of juice at minus 135, but he's allowed at least 6 hits in 17 of his past 22 starts. They kind of leave him in hanging around. And he gets rocked early and often most times, but they don't really have a lot going on there in Washington. The bullpen's atrocious. Might as well just leave Patrick Corbin in there. Carlos Carrasco, the Brew Crew have a top 10 K rate against right-handed pitching and the 6th highest strikeout percentage over the last 30 days. Also inside the top 12 in swinging strike percentage. So I'm going with Carlos Carrasco. And then an Angel. What am I doing here? Patrick Sandoval. A little bit of juice, minus 139 over at Bet Rivers. This is a pretty good spot against Texas. I like Sandoval as a pitcher. He's got a lot of swing and miss in his game. He does struggle with command here and there, but the Texas Rangers have been one of the worst offenses in baseball over the last 2 months. They have the second highest swinging strike percentage over the last 30 days at 13.1%, and they have the 7th highest K rate at 25.5%. So I do like Sandoval to get it done here. Nathan McKinnon on the way out. 8 years, $108 million extension with the Avs makes him the highest paid player in the NHL at 12.6, just ahead of Connor. Oh, baby. I mean, he's had a friendly contract over the past few years. So good for Nate McKinnon, who's yet to have a 100-point season in the NHL, but we know he is one of the best in the game. Hockey talk a little bit later on the week. Good luck with all your waiver wire claims, and we'll be back tomorrow. Have a good one. Cheers.